All right, welcome to, I believe, episode 16 of the Roughing the Passer podcast on the, will soon be on the Six Pack Coverage Network. But we're live Sunday nights, 9:30 p.m. My name's John Newman. Joining me on the show, Mr. David Lee and Jordan Newman on the bottom of your screen there. We're live Sunday nights at 9:30 every Sunday during the season, and in the off season, maybe not every Sunday, but we'll come on. Uh, when news breaks or when there's a busy week, we'll do some pick shows, pre-draft specials, and that sort of thing. So let me share my screen and we'll go through the scoreboard here. Hang on. All right, here we go. Falcons beat the Jaguars 21-14. Atlanta's quickly moving back, sort of, at least into the playoff picture. The Jets, believe it or not, won the return of Zach Wilson. That's not necessarily why they won, but they also won 21-14, beating Houston. Houston led a good portion of that game, too. This game, I think, surprised us, at least me and David. We lost our picks on this. I'm not. I can't remember if Jordan picked it, but the Broncos over the Chargers, 28-13. The Chargers are quickly becoming one of them Jekyll and Hyde teams that you just don't know which one's going to show up at any given time. The Vikings below 500 again after losing 34-26 to the 49ers, who are now 6-5, and they too are in that playoff picture. And probably one of the games of the day, Rams lost to the Packers 36-28. We see the Browns and Ravens. Ravens two Justin Tucker field goals are up 6-0 against the Brown. Let's see some of the other games from earlier today. Don't look now. The Patriots are your AFC East leading team and arguably the hottest team of football. They win their sixth straight game, 36-13 over the Titans. Another team, even at 8-4 themselves, kind of a Jekyll and Hyde team too. I know they're battling some injuries, but the Patriots say Tom Brady, winning 8 of their first 12 games here, and just when we kind of gave the Bills the keys to that division, the Patriots say not so fast to evict us yet. The Giants 13-7 over the Eagles. And the Bengals, uh, I don't know if the Steelers got off the bus or not, but the final score was 41-10 Cincinnati. And the Steelers are going in the wrong direction. Colts led a good portion of this game, too, but couldn't hold on. This game, I believe, no, it didn't go to overtime. Almost did. Buccaneers rally late for a 38-31 victory. And I watched some of the game. Pretty exciting game. A little shootout there. The Panthers, don't look now. The Dolphins, too, sort of kind of trying to climb back in the mix. The Dolphins beat the Panthers 33-10. And Thursday's game was it's a few of them because of the Thanksgiving. Bears beat the Lions 16-14 on a last second field goal. The Raiders beat David Lee's Cowboys in overtime 36-33. And the Bills kind of righted some of their wrongs the last few weeks with a 31-6 win over the Saints. So that's your week with the Browns and Bills playing. Browns and Ravens playing right now. Seahawks in Washington will be tomorrow. So there you go. Again, kind of a crazy, crazy week again, as evidenced by our picks here. So let me put our picks on the screen here, and 2-2 might get this done. So let's go with the leader first. Uh, the Eagles, he lost that one. Lost the Chargers game. So 0-2 there. Tampa Bay covered the 3. And under 52, they went over. They scored 69. So 1-3, little door opening there, depending on what me and Jordan do here. Pretty bunched up. Before, David was 23-20-1 before this week. I was even at 500 at 22-22. I had to win all 4 of my games last week to get there. And Jordan in second place, 22-20 and 2 ties. So let's go to him next. So David's at 1-3. Jordan, he's believer in the Patriots. He was telling us the last few weeks he's looking right. Got that pick right. We all 3 of us got the Chargers game wrong. We all took them today, and Denver said not so fast, fellas. So we all lose that one. I took Indianapolis +3. They did not cover. He was looking good for a while there, Jordan, but Buccaneers rally late. And you're a lot optimistic than I was. You took the points in Pittsburgh. Obviously, unless you had 32, you weren't going to win that spread. So you also had a 1-3 week at this point. So I took the Eagles. They cost me. We all lost the Chargers. So I'm 0-2. I took. We'll leave that Cleveland game last. I took Houston and the Jets under 46.5. They scored 35. So there's a win. So 1-2. And this game is ongoing right now. It's 6-0 Ravens. I got Cleveland underdogs by 5.5. They have the ball and they're moving it here. So, but let's say the score stayed the same. I too would be 1-3. So I gotta hope Cleveland either wins or just covers to win the week at 2-2, which is pretty sad, but that's where we are. So if that's the case, I think it may be pretty close to a three-way tie. So there's the picks, and I think I'm going to stick up for us a little bit here. Let me bring Jordan back in. I don't know what happened, but I'm going to stick up for us a little bit here. In that, I think not that we're Jimmy the Greek or we work in Las Vegas, but we know football, we watch football, and the fact that we're sort of all in around that 500 mark, I think goes to show you kind of this year, where some of these games have been. A lot of surprises, a lot of upsets, a lot of teams, even when they've win one game, maybe not covering the spread like we think they were gonna, and so it's just been a sort of, there's no really one team really running away. I mean, right now New England looks like the hottest team. Even in the NFC, I mean, if you had to pick today, Green Bay would probably be the best team in the NFC. Maybe Tampa Bay still, but one of the Bays, right? And early in the season, it was looking like the Rams. It's almost like the season has like little mini seasons in them, where the Rams sort of look like came out of the chutes, and same thing with the AFC, with certain teams looking like early on, even the Chargers, the Raiders, the Bills after the Steelers beat them in Week 1. Look great, and then they've kind of regressed a little bit. I know they won on Thursday, but it's like one thing's going to be fun. While the Steelers may not be part of it, the postseason is going to be interesting because I think at any given matchup, I mean, there's no just easy games. I don't think anymore. I think the NFL said they've wanted parity for years. I think they really, they really have it. I mean, if you go back to our pick show, um, a lot of the teams a lot of the picks we made, you know, are not that they're wrong, but there's like more. We were sort of set on two or three teams, and there's just a whole lot more that can actually win this thing now. So it's definitely fun. It's definitely interesting. Be nice if the Steelers were part of that equation. I don't believe that to be the case, but what do you guys think?
Yeah, I think it's tough. I think every week, or like you said, there's those mini kind of seasons where you get a team like the Rams, and it's 3, 4 weeks in a row where they look like the team. We're kind of ready to anoint them as like the NFC favorite, and then a week later they have a bad game, and you kind of think it's a hiccup, and then they string together a couple bad games. But it's not, obviously it's not just the Rams. I think we've seen this really every kind of team we expect to be that front runner kind of team. Each one has really kind of had those scary bad games, and none have really kind of taken that step. I think even looking right now, it's tough to pick a team in the NFL really in general to say that's kind of who I really believe in. I think you can have that team, but I think we've seen every single team have their faults, and they're not just those bad games. I think we've seen each team is able to get beat, and I think, like you said, the playoffs I think can get really interesting just because no team really is dominant. No one offense is scoring more than every other team. No one defense is shutting everyone down. It's very much a game to game basis. It feels like, really with every team, and I think it makes it a really good football year. I think it makes watching every game a lot more fun, knowing this really could go either way, but it makes it very interesting just because you expect certain teams to kind of hit their stride and they show flashes and they'll have those games and then they kind of falter again. We haven't seen a team really take kind of a step and really stay consistent with kind of production. And I think, like you kind of alluded to earlier, the Patriots are really one of the most consistent teams, and they don't beat you crazy through the air. They don't, completely shut you down on defense. They just play really good football consistently. They're not making those really game breaking mistakes. And I think that's really the big difference I think we see throughout the league is every team and guys you don't expect to make those mistakes are making those mistakes. I think not to kind of harp on the Rams, but we see Stafford, a guy who we kind of you looked at what he was doing earlier in the year. He's on the Rams. He looks really unbeatable. And then he's the last couple of weeks, I know he's dealing with some minor injuries, but he makes some bad throws and he makes some plays where you kind of shake your head. And that's not a team or a guy you really would think you would be in that situation doing. So I just think in general, we're still usually this deep in the season, we have kind of an idea who those front runner teams are. And right now, it feels like we're still waiting for a team to really get traction and keep going.
Yeah, I mean, even Tampa Bay, even there was a moment in the season where they looked like they were going to go right back to the Super Bowl, and then they lost two games in a row. So it's to the point now where like I wouldn't take bet my house on any one team here. I think,
I hope
we
not.
all
I
kind of
gotta have
thought that,
somewhere to live.
huh?
I said, I hope not. I gotta have somewhere to live.
Yeah, and then even the Chiefs for being, still a good team, going to be a tough out. Mahomes is not having a Mahomes type year. Their defense is not good. They're winning games, not very pretty. A lot of times, not covering the spreads that are put on the games, and they look very beatable for a good team. They look very beatable. Mahomes looks very ordinary. When I say ordinary for him, he's still very. Most people would take his ordinary, but for being as dominating and an elite quarterback, he's not having that kind of year. And so, like you said, Jordan, we're gonna let David chime in here. Like any given, like the saying, it's cliche, but man, any given Sunday definitely applies to the 2021 season so far. David, kind of your, through 12 weeks here, just about kind of what your assessment is.
Yeah, nothing too different or new to add to what you guys already said. And John, you and I talked about this 2 or 3 weeks ago. We're kind of at the midpoint where I remember I was saying like that was I was most in to see is which teams were going to start to pull away and kind of be the teams, right, to beat. There's always the teams that you feel like are the best, and then those teams that happen to just be the hottest teams. Sometimes it's the hottest team that burn through the postseason and end up being being in the Super Bowl. I think that's what happened to the last year. Maybe the Chiefs and Packers were the best team, but the Buccaneers were the best that mattered most, and they ended up being so. That's what I'm interested to see is just actually steps up and kind of proves that their team. The Cowboys are taking one step forward, 2 steps back. The Rams are kind of doing the same thing. The Bills kind of been a little wishy-washy, here and there. Maybe the Patriots become kind of that hot team, right? So, and I kind of was kind of cool. The Patriots and Colts and the Rams and Packers, maybe we're kind of a link toward what we might see in the postseason. A good NFC matchup, a good AFC matchup. So that was it's interesting to me to just see which teams actually step up and put together a complete team, a complete performance. So we've got 6 weeks left, I think.
Yeah, if I'm if I'm a gambler that like makes my living on picking or betting money on NFL games, this year is not really what I want to see because it's tough. I mean, you look at our picks, we're all, around that break, just picked as many wrong as we picked as many right kind of area. I mean, if this was real money, we can laugh about it because we're just kind of competing for bragging rights. But if we were actually putting money on these games and had to pay our bills by how we did, we'd be kind of treading water. So I just think that goes to show you, the parity around the league, and that if you don't come to play, I don't care how many points you're favored by. If you have a dud game, if you have a bad coach game, if you have a player that really stinks it up, especially from a skill set position like a quarterback, or then you could be in for a long day or an unpleasant surprise. As a fan of football, it's fun because when you're watching football, and it's a blowout game, you can change it to another game. But a lot of times we get a lot of blowout games. This year it's been just very few of those and a lot of tighter games and surprises. And even the Eagles this week. I'm not saying I believed in them, but they were starting to play some better football and kind of putting their name in the mix in the AFC or NFC East. And then today they score 7 points. Well, I'm pretty sure I want to talk a little more specifically about that game, especially in the Game Balls and Goats segment. And they lose to the Giants 13-7. And if you look at the Giants box score, it's not like the Giants played well. These are just this were 2 bad teams today, and the lesser bad team someone had to win, right? So today the Giants were the lesser bad team. No one. I know I picked them in the offseason picks, but let's be real. No one right now is on the Giants to do anything or even make the playoffs yet. they beat an Eagles team that many people thought could make some noise. So it's that kind of year where even the favorites or teams that sort of are contenders. You can go from contender to pretender pretty fast. It seems like from one week to the next. And some of these teams we're talking about next week they blow someone out, and right again we're talking about them being sort of going to be a tough team in the postseason. That's how fast it can change. But let's get to our game ball and goats segment. I always seem to go first, so I'm going to change that. We'll start with Jordan, and I'll go last.
So I'll start with a goat, and I'll kind of knock out the one that probably everyone has. So I have Cam Newton. I think, and even me, I think I didn't believe in him too much. I think especially after kind of last year, it was a rather difficult year. And I think the only place I thought would be good for him to really go back was the Panthers. And you had that kind of big, reunion. There's kind of that good feeling going on. They were looking somewhat good. And then just a game, 5 for 21, 2 picks and 92 yards. There's not really much to say about it. Anytime you pass for under 25 completion percentage, you're really putting your team at like a serious loss. It's just going to be an interesting situation, I think, now for the Panthers going forward. Is what do you do when guys are healthy and you have a Sam Darnold? Who do you really go with when you have two quarterbacks that are kind of middling at best? And yeah, they both can show flashes, but I just don't know where really Matt Rule kind of goes forward with this. I think they probably got a bit excited last week, seeing kind of him kind of that spice kind of or just a flavor to the offense where they were moving the ball. They looked somewhat explosive, and now you're in a situation where like that can't happen. You know what I mean? You can't have a guy complete 5 passes and have 16 of them be incomplete. It's just that's not NFL level football or anything close. And you're paying other guys on offense to make plays, and when you have a quarterback play down to that level, you handicap really your entire offense. So I think really anytime you have a game that poorly, you really, for the Panthers to have won that game, it would have had to have been an amazing effort really all around. I think that it's one of probably the worst quarterback performances probably ever. So that definitely makes the GOAT list.
Yeah, David, I'm assuming, did he make your list?
Yeah, he's definitely one of those for sure. But like Jordan said, it's an easy pick. But yeah, what stands out to me, Jordan touched on, is just kind of the roller coaster, ride Cam Newton has had. He gets a lot of headlines anytime something happens with him, and it just seems like the Panthers are kind of muddying the waters right now. But they've had injuries. Darnold started off playing pretty well, I thought, early in the season, and then kind of getting nicked up, and then sort of tanking. But yeah, it's just kind of weird. I mean, obviously that offense is still powered by Christian McCaffrey, no doubt. But yeah, it's just a weird roller coaster ride. He's gone, he's back, kind of a thing. So it's I still remember when he was had one of the best college football seasons of all time, at Auburn, when they won the national championship, and he was kind of on top of the world. But it's just a weird thing to see. It's kind of one of those things where he's just kind of stuck in a pinball right now, and he's about to bounce his week. But if you're a fan, you just got to kind of be worrying what's happened week to week at this point. So it's definitely a weird deal.
Yeah, let me speak to. He made my list too. Carolina is one of those teams we kind of talked about from where we kind of what they were looking like to where they are now. I mean, Matt Rule had a great rookie year as a coach, even though they didn't make the postseason. They kind of moved in the right direction. They were playing competitive football. Many felt they were a quarterback sort of a quarterback away from really taking the next step. They traded for Sam Darnold. He looks good early. They're winning. Everyone's thinking now that that's the next step. He regresses. They start losing. They go out and get signed Cam. He comes out the first game, looks pretty good. After struggling in New England, and then obviously getting caught. And everyone's like, all right, maybe they can rebound with Cam a second win. And then today, like Jordan said, one of the worst quarterback lines maybe ever, or it's in the mix, it's in the discussion for that. And they lose to what most people would say is not a world beater in the Dolphins. Not just lose, but I mean they lose pretty soundly, 33-10. And another quarterback that's kind of taken a lot of heat looks good today. But so yeah, Cam Newton made my list, and this to me looks like a guy that's at the end of his career. He doesn't look like he's going to be able to put 3, 4, 5 of these kind of games together. He looks sort of like a guy that'll have a game like he did last week every once in a while, and then you got to deal with 3 clunkers in between. And teams aren't going to sign up for that. And that's why I think his career is really can he be on a team if he accepts the role? Can he be on a roster as sort of someone goes down with injury? Here comes Cam for a game. Sure, I think a team would sign him under those pretenses potentially, but he's not a guy I'm going to hitch my whole season's fortunes on. I think those days are over. I think they happened in Carolina on the first run, and Belichick thought he could maybe revive some of that. That didn't work, and love him or hate him, if we've seen what Belichick's done with a lot lesser named quarterbacks, your Matt Castles, your Brian Hoyers, and so if it didn't happen there and he's not looking great in Carolina, you got to start to think that probably the Cam Newton glory days in the NFL are in the rearview mirror. Again, can he be a stopgap 1 or 2 game guy? Maybe. Is the team willing to do that? That's another question. And is he willing to do that? He can. I think he's the kind of guy can be a distraction, because I think he's one of the guys that doesn't realize how his own play is. I think he thinks he's better. Even last week he had a decent game and is in the end zone. Saying I'm back and running around the stadium, giving a victory lap and slapping hands, and so I don't think he knows where he's at in his career. And so if I'm a team, I'm probably like, there's got to be other guys we can if sign instead of him. And so his career is pretty much at the tail end. Whether he's signed as sort of a second string stopgap and hope he doesn't complain about it, or no one touches him and he's done in the NFL. But his glory days are behind him. Let's snake drafted back. Let's go with a game ball. We don't always give him the running backs, but this guy today, I think, Tom Brady didn't play great. He didn't play terrible, but Tampa Bay Buccaneers today, Leonard Fournette, big game on the ground, 3 touchdowns, and you take that away, and that game's probably different. If they're not running the ball as well as they did today, Indianapolis probably holds on and wins that game. So I'm going to give a game ball to Leonard Fournette, still showing that he's still got a little game left in those old legs. We say old legs when you look at his age on a birth certificate. He's not old, but as we know in the NFL, running back shelf life and age of decline is short compared to other positions. So Leonard Fournette, while not old on his birth certificate is sort of old when it comes to running backs. But today he showed he's still capable of sort of carrying a team every once in a while to victory. So we'll kind of go back down the other way. David, a game ball from you.
Yeah, I had Fournette as well.
Okay.
The 4 touchdowns are definitely hard to overlook. 130, I think, total yards on the ground here, but I was a fan of him going to Tampa Bay, from Ville. I thought that was a good move, and when when Fournette was LSU, I thought he was going to be the next Adrian Peterson. He was an absolute monster at LSU. And maybe Jacksonville was a black hole talent. I don't know at that time. He's had like 2 1,000-yard seasons in his career, and you're right. He's not an old guy. He's not an old player. He's been hurt here and there, but and he really racked up a ton of workload over his seasons. But it's cool when a guy like that on the championship team steps up, because that offense still has Mike Evans. They still have Gronk. Ronald Jones can step up to be a pretty efficient running back. When we saw that last year, I think he averaged over 5 yards a carry. So that was cool. It was cool to see Fournette kind of step up and do that. And the Colts were surging. The Colts were kind of like a Patriots. With Jonathan Taylor carrying that team over the last few weeks. So that was a pretty cool matchup. That was kind of maybe a postseason worthy matchup for the Colts and the Bucs, two different conferences. But that was a cool matchup, and it was cool to see him get in the end zone 4 times.
Jordan, was he on your game ball list or no?
No, so he just didn't make it. I really did think about him. I ended up going with a different running back. I went with Joe Mixon, especially having like a first row seat to watch it. I mean, he really was that game. I think Burrow had an okay game. I think he was just under 200 yards and a pick and a touchdown. And Mixon was really the pace setter the entire way. Pittsburgh had no answer for him. I mean, first down, it was at least pretty much 5 yards a carry. And it really opened up the entire game for the Bengals. He ended up 28 carries, 165 yards, and 2 touchdowns. I mean, when your running back does that, it makes the job so much easier for Burrow and those receivers. And I think really for the Bengals in general is every year it feels like we talk about the potential with Mixon, and Mixon can really be that top 5 running back. And now I think we're really starting to see that feature back kind of develop with him. I think they're really starting to use him as that guy, and it's showing. They don't need Burrow and Chase to have those major crazy scoring games to win games now. I think when you've got a stable and a great back really in Mixon, you can really just play off him, and you don't have to be Superman as Joe Burrow, and you don't have to have 2 40-plus yard touchdowns with Chase. And I think that's what really can start to make the Bengals scary, is when you have a guy like Mixon, which they've had, but he's really kind of starting to come into form, and he himself can take over games. And really just today in general, he was really the engine that was making the Bengals go. I think a lot of the plays that were coming off of play action and just the pass game in general were really just coming from Pittsburgh had to gear up to stop the run because they couldn't do it with a normal defensive front, which is really not typical of Pittsburgh. And I think that's another thing. It was a pretty big game against a defense that is known to kind of hold guys down. So it just all game Pittsburgh was completely off balance, and I think that really goes mainly to Mixon.
Yeah, Facebook user says who day. I have a feeling I know who that might be. It doesn't say his name, on his comment. But I got to put it up there.
You
Got to be if you win with class, you got to lose with class as a fan. So hey, they had our number. They've had our number the last 3 times. Mixon got a game ball from me too. He had over 130 yards in the first half. I remember a Steeler defense that didn't give up 100-yard rushers for the game. That defense is long gone at least at this point, and we've been run on for the most part most of the year. And Mixon did his damage today, like you said, Jordan. You get that kind of game on the ground, it takes a lot of pressure off the other skill set positions. It opens up what they can do as well, because as teams try to stop the run, that opens up the passing game. So the Steelers never got off the bus, and this game was pretty ugly. Matter of fact, the Steelers touchdown was a garbage time touchdown at the end. So this score was more 41-3 than 41-10. So David, did Mixon get a game ball, or did you go a different way?
No, he was my third game ball. But yeah, what stood out to me is what Jordan said, is just kind of being, kind of stepping up and kind of getting better and being that feature back for a young rising offense. I mean, you look at all the young stars on that offense; they're only in their second or third year league. Chase, rookie, in second year, Burrow, second year. And then Mixon, who's, I was familiar with him, was at Oklahoma, obviously, with maybe Longhorns Big 12 stuff. He was always kind of taller, kind of a bruising type of, but yeah, that to see him kind of step up in an offense where much of the attention is given to Burrow and Chase. But you've got Mixon, who steps up and has a game like that. So there's a lot of exciting things, I think, for Bengals fans to pay attention to right now, with what they're putting together. If they can cobble up a better offensive line over the next 2 or 3 years, that'll be a pretty scary offense, because I think Jamar Chase is an elite receiver for a long time. Runs route that 5-year veteran receivers are that from them. He's a really surgical, smart route runner. So when you have that, and if you can have a guy like Mixon that you can rely on, that's going to be a tough offense for the next several years if they can keep it together.
All right, we'll stay with you, David, kind of giving everyone a fair shot. Game ball or goat, either direction you want to go here.
Yeah, I'll go goat. I had to give a goat to Zeke Elliott with his worst game of the year, 25 yards on the ground, and he had about the same number of yards through the air, but that was his worst rushing production of the year. Carried the ball 9 times. He did get in the end zone once, but Dallas was without CeeDee Lamb and Amari Cooper, their top receivers. So if it ever was it really needed the running to step up, I think it was this. And the running game's been struggling over the past 2 or 3 weeks, so especially from that Broncos game a month ago. But the running game total churned out 4 yards. Prescott had to throw the ball 50 times. Obviously, it went into overtime. Dallas definitely should have handled the Raiders, but they really needed. I think they really needed Elliott to step up, and the run blocking wasn't that great either. So I'm not all on his fault. But Dallas has lost 3 of the last 4, and I think not being able to consistently run the ball has been a big part of that. So, Elliott was averaging, I think, like 4.5 yards a carry for the season, which is pretty good. Not great, but that's pretty good. But Thursday it was what he finished with 2.8 yards per carry. He only had rushes, but it was his worst production of the season. So when in a game when they needed him to step up, being the top two receivers.
All right, Jordan, go ahead and give one of your goats.
So I went with Ryan Tannehill. 11 for 21, 93 yards and a touchdown and a pick. Obviously, didn't have Derrick Henry and you didn't have A.J. Brown. And I think that's really kind of the big thing is Tannehill can't really just be a good quarterback when everyone's healthy. You can't just be the guy when everything else is there for you. There's times like the last couple of weeks where there's guys aren't going to be there and you've got to be able to step up. And I think not really just this week. I think we've seen kind of the last couple without A.J. Brown and without Henry, he's really struggled to get any traction and really help that offense. Just right over 50% and not over 100 yards. There was some of these lines, I think, in general, from quarterback lines today were actually really mind-boggling. But it's just when you have those guys go down, you've got to be able to come out and be somewhat of a leader and have a bit more of an inspiring performance. I think when you have that kind of middle of the pack performance, it's just tough, and I think it's not a great look for Tannehill, who I think's a good quarterback. But without Henry, he's seeming to kind of not be as bright and as good, I think, as we once thought. I think in the amount that Tennessee uses and relies on Henry is, I think, starting to be shown now. I mean, he's still, I think, even last week, I'm sure now Jonathan Taylor's passed him, but last week I think he was still beating Jonathan Taylor in carries. And he hadn't played in a few weeks, and I think it's really kind of coming back on Tennessee and really mainly Tannehill is how much they really put that offense into Henry, and we haven't seen Tannehill really be able to make kind of step up when he's not there, and that's going to be kind of an issue. One, because there's going to be games the way they use Henry, he's not going to be there, and even if he is healthy, he's got those games he does get shut down. In especially in the playoffs, you don't have another game to get it figured out. You've got to be able to step up and kind of lead that team, and I don't know if Tannehill can. I think we've seen him do it. But I think we've seen now with the consistency of not having those guys, he really hasn't been able to keep up that kind of level of play as he does when he has the kind of security blanket of Derrick Henry.
Yeah, so Tannehill made my list too as the GOAT. And actually, he made my list. Then I pulled him off. I said, well, you know what? He's dealing with some injuries. And then I put him back on. And here's why I put him back on my GOAT list. Under 100 yards passing, a game you lose by double digits. And while he didn't have Derrick Henry, they had two running backs today each rush for over 100 yards. So the running game was productive, which should have opened up more of that passing game. And he really had a clunker. So while I like to give guys passes for injuries, you know what I mean, to their offense, if they're an offensive player, I'm not giving them one today because some of the other guys did produce, at least on the ground, with 200-yard receivers. And, you know, you throw for 98 yards in a game where you lose by double digits. So I put him right back on. I had him on, took him off, and then put him back when I really sort of put everything else together that he did have some production. So I'll close out my GOATs. I went with three quarterbacks this week: Newton, Tannehill, and this guy from the Eagles, Jalen Hurts. You know, just when Eagle fans sort of want to anoint him the next guy, he goes and he has these games today. Not very good. I think his quarterback rating was 40 something. A lot of incomplete passes. I think he threw 3 picks. and you only score 7 points against the Giants, you probably should get a GOAT for that. A Giants team that's been pretty disappointing in their own right. And so this is a game where, to me, if Jalen Hurts was a really good quarterback, he would have took advantage of that matchup, this schedule, and he didn't, and played poorly. The Giants win, and just when people in Philadelphia were getting excited about potential postseason, they got some cold water splashed on them today in the form of Jalen Hurts. And so, I think he's going to be, unfortunately, Eagle fans ain't going to like this. He's going to be one of those guys that, uh, you know, 1 week you think you got your position all solved, and then I think the next 3 weeks you're swearing and saying the F word, followed by Hurts, and let's draft a guy. And so, I that's not a recipe for success, and they're going to have a decision to make, whether that's go out and sign a veteran quarterback, or go back to the draft and try again. He was kind of a project pick. They traded up. He got picked a little higher than most scouts and draft experts had him slotted at. And I think he's shown some of that in his performances as well. So those are my three GOATs. We covered them all. Hurts, Tannehill, and Newton. But going back to David Lee, and we can go either way here, GOAT or game ball.
Mm-hmm. My turn.
Yep.
Yeah, I've got one game ball that we haven't talked about, but Hurts was my third GOAT. But yeah, I completely agree with that assessment. It's one of those, you get what the Eagles have thrown out there at quarterback, and Wentz and his, inability to stay on the field, Bowles, and yeah, you're right. Hurts is the kind of project quarterback that, is he just a college quarterback? Can he be in the NFL? And that was a pretty decent opportunity for the Eagles to kind of pull away, at least from where the Giants are kind of, performing at this point. Neither of them I don't think they're going to catch the Cowboys in the division, but it was at least a chance for them to, for them to, pull away from the bottom of that division. But my other game ball, I gave Jalen Waddle one. It was his best game of his rookie year. 9 catches for 137 yards and a touchdown. We've already talked about the win over the Panthers, but they were kind of, I think they had the same record as the Panthers, and they got a win over them. I don't think Miami's going to catch New England or the Bills. But it was cool. It was cool to see, Waddle step up. Tua was back and made all the throws today. And there was just a lot, made of Waddle being paired with his college quarterback again, a lot like Jamar Chase being paired with Joe Burrow again. And I think going into the draft this year, I thought Waddle was the best of the 4 Alabama wide receivers who have been drafted in the first round of the past 2 years. I really like JD, but coming out of college, I thought Waddle was just, even more explosive. And heck, it was his mate who won Heisman in Devontae Smith. So you look at all that talent that came out of there, and I was higher on Waddle than I was the other 3 guys. But that we'll see him step up. Especially a rookie. It's tough for rookie receivers to do what we saw from Justin Jefferson last year and what we're seeing from Jamar Chase this year. I think it's a big learning curve for a rookie receiver, especially consistency wise. So I just thought that was cool to see him come up with a big game.
Yeah, Waddle was my last game ball as well. I think huge day. It's the second time he's made my list, if my memory is right. And when I kind of knew that, I'm like, do I not put him on there because I picked him once? And I'm like, well, that's not fair. You can be on this list more than once on either side, game ball or go. And
Every week he plays.
yeah, so I put him on. I put him on the list today. 9 catches, 137 yards. I think he also ran the ball a few times as well. If my memory served me right. And so in the game they won, and you can give probably an honorable mention to Tua, but uh, like you said, I think he's arguably one of the better receivers from this draft. Probably going to be him and Chase that they talk about in years down the line. With who would you want first out of that year's draft as a receiver? And so might be Chase long term, but Waddle's proven to be. You can argue he's doing a lot of what he's doing with some questions at quarterback or not a stability. He doesn't have and Aaron Rodgers or Tom Brady. Who was playing pretty well, but he's doing that with sort of, if you want to say a lesser talented quarterback than some other star at wide receivers have. You can make that argument. So, yeah, I took Waddle today too. Who's left on your list, Jordan?
So I have two. So I went with I wanted to put Tua on. He just didn't make enough kind of those big splash plays to really earn it. But I ended up going with the guy that ended up replacing him. I went with Mac Jones. I think they actually played really similar games, but just to be that efficient, 2 touchdowns, 23 for 32 and 310 yards, and to really just kind of dismantle Tennessee like they did. And that's what I find really the most impressive with Mac Jones is I've almost put him on this list before, and I always don't because he just to me he never does enough. And I think that's what the big thing is. He doesn't go outside of his bounds. He doesn't do more than is really asked of him. He goes out and he hits, he does what he needs to do to make that offense move. And I think that's really the biggest thing you can ask of a quarterback. And it's what's made Tom Brady so good for his career is he just plays quarterback well. He finds guys that are open and he doesn't extend stuff that doesn't have to be extended. And I think it's the perfect really fit for him to be there with Belichick is just to see him kind of go in and as a rookie really just be somewhat that comfortable in an offense like that where he has and he's alluded to in like post game press conferences he won't answer whether he can audible or not, but he seems extremely comfortable in an offense which for almost 20 or so years was run really by one guy in Tom Brady had full control, and to see a rookie kind of come in after the year Cam Newton had there and completely really restabilize that team and to have such a consistent and moving offense with guys that aren't it's not really a superstar level offense. I think you can kind of look around that team and they've got players, they've got guys that are going to play hard and play well, but they don't have, I think, nearly the offensive talent as a lot of other teams in the NFL that aren't playing nearly to the level the Patriots are. And I think a big thing with that is how consistent in Mac Jones is. And you just know every game you're going to get, that guy. Mac Jones is going to show up. It's the same one. And I think really in general with the league is we've seen such inconsistent quarterback play that you don't have to be, crazy every week. Just be good. And I think that's what we've really seen Mac Jones do is he's done what he's had to do to win, and he hasn't really been flustered by kind of that pressure. And I think, especially in the situation and the team he's in, it's not easy to do. And I think, especially going into a division, you're likely probably not the favorite with the Bills. It's really impressive to see kind of the Patriots operate the way they are while they have the other team like the Bills in the division who can put up as many points as they can, to watch Belichick really and Mac Jones just kind of say, we're going to win our way. We're still going to play kind of Patriot football. And as much as, being a Steelers fan, not, seeing that and not liking it for, 20 or so years, it's pretty respectable to see just a program really operate kind of that smoothly, consistently, and to have a guy, especially a rookie, kind of come in and it took a few weeks, but really almost seamlessly kind of put the shoe on it and really take control of the offense. And then
Yeah, if you would, yeah,
but
I mean, Mac Jones is arguably, well, not really arguably, he's having the best rookie season of the rookie quarterbacks. And if you would have told me that, I would have been surprised by that. But here they are. I saw during the game, they put up, the stat line from the first 12 games of Mac Jones's career, and of course Tom Brady's career, and they were all literally, I'm not kidding, they were almost exact numbers. And I believe it was the Jim Nance, Tony Romo box, and so Jim Nance said, look, Tony, through the first 12 games, these guys are really on the same pace, along the same lines. And Romo pointed out, and I didn't even think about this. Mac Jones is doing it as a true rookie. Tom Brady did it in his second season. While he didn't play much, he got some real mop up time, and I think one game in his rookie season. Uh, he at least had Tony Romo pointed out, while he didn't play much, he got to learn for a year before he actually had to come in and really play. And so Mac Jones didn't really get that luxury. That was, I think, sort of the plan for him to learn behind Cam Newton. And I think Cam Newton was so bad that Mac Jones outplayed him. And Bill Belichick said, you know what? Let's start the era now, and why wait? And so to do that as a true rookie, where a lot of other rookies don't have success like that. Troy Aikman struggled his first year. Peyton Manning had a rough first year. Obviously, they both turned out to be Hall of Famers. But to do this as a rookie and win, in what I believe is actually, you take the Jets out, and this division's actually not too bad overall. And so I didn't think Mac Jones was this good, but I didn't think Kyler Murray was going to be who he was either. So luckily, I'm not drafting quarterbacks and for teams. But yeah, I'm surprised, but it might be a testament, a little bit of credit probably to Belichick for knowing how to just find these guys, and not only find them, but get them the tools to be successful. So yeah, Mac Jones, I can't argue with that. Anyone on my list is all six of my guys have been talked about. It. Did we miss anybody?
I've got one more
All
for
right, go ahead.
I went with Patrick Surtain. He ended up having 2 picks and returned one for a touchdown in a game the Broncos won by, I think, 15 points. So his 2 picks, at least, especially the one, he did the scoring himself, were really kind of the big, I think, turn in that game. I think, especially offensively, the Broncos really didn't light it up, and that was what was kind of confusing looking at that game. Is you put up 28 points, you kind of expect to see someone kind of go off, and you look at, and it's very pedestrian numbers, and then you see, Patrick Surtain had the big pick six, and then ended up having another pick as well. Anytime a defensive player, I think, gets you the ball back 2 times on his own is big, and then the one time he gives you the 6 points for you, it's kind of a game breaker. The and that was a game I think that was confusing to me, but I think that's really kind of what explains it. Anytime you have 2 kind of crucial interceptions or turnovers, especially one that turns into points off the turnover, it can definitely change the game. So I think Sertan kind of stood out to me there, especially with really no offense of player really kind of jumping out for the Broncos.
Yeah, we all were surprised by that because we all picked the Chargers in our confidence pick. So I don't think any of us saw that coming. Great point, Jordan. If you look at that box and you look at, if you didn't know the score, and I just say, look at the Broncos offense this game, and said who won. They were playing the Chargers. Who do you think won? Anyone, 90% of the people would say, oh, the Chargers won this game. Yet the Broncos won the game, and like you so pointed out, was on the defense side of the ball. And any time it seems like the Vic Fangio seat gets hot, right? They kind of pull off one of these type of games. His seat was hot. They go into Dallas and they shut out the Cowboys. His seat gets hot again and they beat a Chargers team. But then this is the same team. They're beating the likes of the Cowboys and the Chargers, and then losing to lesser teams. So really no consistency there. I don't know Fangio's how long he's going to be there, but he seemed what he should just do is pretend he's on the hot seat every day, every week, and they can win almost every week. But we'll see. I still think the heat's a little bit on, as it should be. But yeah, no doubt, 2 picks, probably the difference in a ball game where your offense doesn't light up the scoreboard. So can't argue with that. Is that everybody's list?
Yeah, it's all mine.
All right, we're at the hour mark. Any last remarks before we close the show?
I just want to see who's the real team. Is it the Rams, the Cardinals, the Cowboys, Packers? I don't know. Is it are the Bills really even going to win division? I don't know anymore. So it's a wheel. I know they have to play the Cardinals. Then they always have to play the Cardinals. There's some interesting matchup left in the last 6 weeks or so. That as the way things are going right now could really shake up this in the conferences, and with one team a bye, and a pretty good spot. So I wouldn't feel comfortable. I wouldn't feel comfortable betting too much on anybody right now.
Yeah, it's wide open. As long as you can get in the playoffs, that's the thing, getting in. But once you get in the dance, anything is possible. It's crazy. We're seeing, you know how this goes, guys. Usually this part of the year, you sort of got to bead on, the top 2, 3, 4 teams, and this thing is really wide open, and even the teams that are playing real well right now wouldn't have been teams we predicted, right? I don't think Jordan was a little higher on them, I think, than me and you, David. But I don't think anyone was picking the Patriots to be playing this well at this point of the season, and the Green Bay's playing pretty well. Not that they're a bad team, but I remember talking about it. I was just concerned that some of the Aaron Rodgers off the field stuff was going to sort of derail and distract this team. And here they are, still in the mix, and today looking really good. And their defense, and not so much today, but their defense played well today. But their defense has actually played a lot better than most would have predicted. So it's going to be an interesting rest of the 6 weeks, and then it's if nothing changes and not we kind of stay along this trend, it's going to be one heck of an off season where again, if I'm a gambler that makes my livelihood from that profession, this is not the kind of year you want to see, because you can't go into any week with any sort of confidence that you're going to clean house. And matter of fact, the opposite can happen. We see with some of our picks, You know, I think we all. I'm not sure we all did. I know I went 0-4 at least once. We've had some 1-3 weeks like this week. It's just a crazy season, and it looks like it's going to continue for the unforeseen future. All right, guys. So that's it. Week 12 is about in the books. Just the final 13-3 Ravens, and they have the ball. And so the Browns, and the Browns got a question here. Baker supposedly got a bunch of these little injuries. I'm not watching the game directly because we're doing the show, but obviously they've only scored 3 points. Stepnansky's got to decide here if maybe 100% Case Keenum might be better than a 60% Baker Mayfield, and so he's got a decision. I think maybe not just in this game, but in the next few weeks if Baker Mayfield isn't 100% healthy.
Yeah, I think that not even just for the team, really for Baker's confidence. I think it's kind of an odd combination of, and I don't, what I mean, know how much blame is to put on what, but it's an odd combination of you get rid of Odell, he's kind of got the shoulder in their offense kind of flutters. So in their offense wasn't lighting it up when Odell was there either, but it does look bad on Mayfield's part that he isn't. He's really kind of stuck in that mud and hasn't been able to break out and have a good game in a while. Which I think it would be extremely foolish if the Cleveland Browns were to move on long term. But I think, like you said, if he's banged up, and as much as a gamer as Mayfield is, and as much as you think he might give you a better chance to win, he's not right now. And I think for his own confidence sake is get him out, get him where he can really make a positive impact. Because right now, whether it's injuries or whether it's not injuries, he's not really able to do that right now. I think in general, the Browns offense needs to find that balance. I think we see so many teams in the NFL are so pass heavy they don't run enough. I think Cleveland's really in that opposite where they're too run heavy. And they don't work on a legitimate passing attack. I think consistently. So I agree. I think I would at least sit him a game and let him get let someone else go in there. He's been stuck in the mud, and like you said, it's always kind of that constant bringing up of the nagging injuries. If it's nagging injuries, then let him heal. There's no point in kind of rolling him out there to see like subpar performances and then just being, well, he's kind of beat up. Well, then don't play him. If beat up
Yeah.
Mayfield is giving you that, then let him get healthy. I don't obviously I wouldn't move on, but there's no point in not having him at full strength.
Yeah, well, we'll see. Listen, we get as Steeler fans, we get the Ravens next week. Not feeling good about that, especially after today's debacle. But hey, listen, you know what gives me hope, if anything? What we've talked about a lot in this episode is any given Sunday, right? The way this season has been. So hopefully the Steelers can along those lines come up with a surprise win, and be above 500 again somehow, some way. But we'll see. And so for David Lee and Jordan Newman, this is Roughing the Passer, 9:30 p.m. on Sundays live. And if you miss us live, that's okay. We're on most major podcast platforms. So we'll see you in a week.